Hey everyone, Storm Targaryen here from Tier Mania, back at it again for another tier list as we do. Unfortunately, it's going to be just me here today. Jason and I are both very busy and he could not make it tonight, so I'm going to be doing this tier list by myself. And Jason has not played Persona 5 Royale, so obviously to avoid spoilers, he is going to not watch this until he does. But with that said, here we go, Persona 5 Royale tier list. Spoilers ahead. I'm going to be talking about these characters in depth, about their storylines, about where they end up, all of that stuff. So if you have not finished the game, or you haven't done many of the Confidants, or haven't finished many of the Confidant storylines, please do so before you watch this any further, because spoilers are ahead. Now, when it comes to where they actually rank, the way I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to be basing it off of not only their story and how good their storyline is, in my opinion, but also how good their abilities are. When I look at a lot of other tier lists on YouTube and things, most tier lists either pick one or the other. They either pick the character or they pick the abilities, and I want to do both. So it's going to be about a 50-50 split on how well the character ranks based off their abilities and based off their storyline. So keep that in mind. Again, spoilers ahead, and just a heads up, I'm very biased. This is a story that I really love. Persona 5 is easily one of my favorite games of all time. I'm very invested into it, and I feel very strongly about these characters. So I'm sorry in advance if I hate on a character that you really like, but I am biased both positively towards characters and negatively, so that is going to come out. But at the end of the day, it is just my opinion, and if you have a different one, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about it, and if you have any ideas for future tier lists, please let me know. But with all that said, here we go. Best boy Ryuji, here he is. So, again, like I said, I'm very biased. I love me some Ryuji, what a guy. But, so, I do think he genuinely is an S tier though, like not even just my own opinion. I think he's very good. So, based on his story, right? Obviously, he had his beef with Kamoshida from back in the day. He was on the track team. Kamoshida like broke his knee or something like that, or broke his ankle. I can't remember what body part it was, but it was something with his leg. He lashed out, punched Kamoshida, got the track team shut down. Now Ryuji has to take all the blame for that. He has to cope with all that. That's really tough. As an athlete myself, I could definitely relate to Ryuji to some degree. But also, Ryuji gets hated on so much for absolutely no reason. Like, I get it's for comedic effect. When him and Morgana are arguing, him and Ann are arguing, him and Futaba are arguing, whatever it is, I get it, it's jokes, hardy har har, but like, relax, like, go easy on my guy Ryuji, okay? He's just living his life. He finally has like a best friend in the main character. I think the character's name is Ren, I'm not sure. But he finally gets a good friend, and then everyone just hates on him as soon as he gets a friend group. It's like, come on now, help out my guy Ryuji. He's been through a lot. When you do his Confidant, you get to help him out, reconciling with his past, and help him come to terms with what he wants to do in his life and what he wants to do going forward. And it's a really great storyline. It's super compelling. It really shows his character development, and it's just really heartwarming to see him moving forward and making progress in his life, and it's really great. Gotta love Ryuji, best boy, just throwing it out there, letting you know now. But not just his story, obviously. His abilities is what really sets him apart. Specifically, just his insta-kill ability. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Insta-kill was already good in vanilla Persona 5, as we know, but also, as we know, in Royale, his insta-kill ability now gives you experience and it gives you money. So this literally makes grinding so easy, it's ridiculous. It is amazing. This will save so much time off of any of your playthroughs that you're going to do, regardless of difficulty. If you want to make progress in the game, if you want to have an easier time, just get Ryuji to level 7, I believe it is, for the Confidant, and your world will be changed. It's so incredibly powerful that he could be S tier just based off of insta-kill alone, not even considering his story. But you throw the story in, easy S tier, Ryuji, starting off strong. Now, Morgana is interesting. I have never been the biggest fan of Morgana's character. I think his storyline is definitely unique to say the least. I think when on your first playthrough of vanilla Persona 5, or even if you started with Royale, the whole question of what is Morgana is really interesting, especially if you started with Persona 5 and you haven't played the other ones, you haven't seen these like anamorphic characters before. But Morgana is, I think, B tier. I think his story is, it is what it is. I think the whole thing about him just getting really upset the group doesn't like him because they were hating on him for like 30 seconds and he just runs away to go with Haru. I think that was really odd, and that kind of put a damper on his whole storyline, because obviously, as I just said, Ryuji gets hated on every single moment of every day and no one cares. But as soon as Morgana takes a little bit of talk back, he just can't handle it. That, I feel like, really does not bode well for my guy Morgana. Plus, oh my god, in Royale, when you get to the last storyline, seeing human Morgana is the most cursed thing I've ever seen. I cannot unsee that, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Oh god, I have never been more shook in my life than when I saw human Morgana. I was like, this is not it. This is just not it. I'm sorry, I can't do it. But Morgana's abilities are pretty good. I mean, he has, the basic, all of your party members' abilities that will give you. But Morgana just in battle is really nice to have. Like, he's the main healer of the group and the first healer you're gonna get, and arguably the most powerful healer you're gonna get besides the main character. And it's just like very, very solid overall. Nothing game breaking with Morgana, nothing amazing with his storyline, but he's just very solid. And I feel like that's what B tier kind of embodies. So Morgana going in B tier. On is really interesting. I've heard cases to be made that On is best girl. I don't know about all that, but I do think she is very interesting, and I think she goes in A tier. So, On's story, she's got her whole modeling thing going on. Obviously, she had her stuff with Kamoshida and Shido. That was extremely, took a huge toll on her, with Shido trying to commit suicide in the beginning of the game, and Kamoshida being a huge reason for that. But when you do her Confidant, she is kind of grappling with what she wants to do with her life, as most young people do. She has her modeling beef with that other model, and at the end of it, she comes to terms with everything. She reconciles with Shiho, my bad. And everything just works out great for her. She's really confident in herself by the end of the story, at the end of her Confidant. And, she just comes out as a well-rounded character. Again, that's going to be a theme going forward. That's what's so great about this game, as we know. Most of these characters are very well fleshed out, and it's really refreshing. But yeah, On is no exception. She's really caring. She's really kind. She's funny. All of that stuff. Like, everything you'd want in a character, On has. So, shout out to her storyline. But what makes her interesting is her changes that they made to her in Royale. And keep in mind, I'm going off the top of my head for all of this. I'm not pulling anything up. I'm not looking anything up on like what exactly everybody has. So bear with me if I get some things wrong here. But On's new ability is really convenient. Obviously, it's not something that will happen every single battle that you're in, but having this decent chance to have an enemy's move completely negated is game changing. It's not as crazy as Ryuji's insta-kill, but it's pretty strong when it happens. The fact that, especially as those of you who know played on the harder difficulties, when you go against those no weakness enemies, it can be very, very, very scary if you're not prepared, because they can just one-shot you. It's brutal sometimes. And not having to worry about that, because On just distracts them for a second, is so clutch. It can save your life so many times, but it is held back by, being a random chance. So that is a little bit rough, but everything else considered, again, party member, so she has all the basic party member abilities. But that one is also very, very strong. Story's really good. I think she makes for a very solid overpowered. You know what I mean? So, On A tier. On A tier. A tier for On. There you go. But Yusuke, our boy, he is an interesting one as well. I feel like I'm just going to say that for all the characters. I personally was not the biggest fan of Yusuke on my first few playthroughs. I don't know. I didn't really find him very intriguing. or very compelling, that is, sorry. But he is very, very, very different. That's for sure. I feel like I'm not elaborating on my points very well. But his ability with the blank cards is very strong. Being able to duplicate, and the other one that you get later on with this Confidant is very, 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 very strong. You know, you can get moves like charge and concentrate and, you know, things like that, and debilitate and all that on so many personas you wouldn't normally be able to get. It is very, 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 very strong to have that, which is why he's not in C tier. Sorry, I just put it there for there. But I do think his storyline is not that great. Like, it's definitely not bad. Obviously, everything that happened with Madarame took a toll on him. You know, he had like artist block at the beginning of his Confidant, and then he slowly, you know, regains his confidence and all of that stuff, which is, again, a recurring theme. A lot of these Confidants are just, you know, helping people out with their confidence by just standing there. Just standing there and just being with them. It just opens up their world. And Yusuke is no exception to that. He finds his way, he finds his art, gets successful, and it's really cool to see, but it's not, at least to me, it doesn't feel as compelling as the other characters previously mentioned, the ones I'll mention after this. Like, he's definitely not bad by any means, but it's just nothing wild, nothing breaking the wheel, you know what I mean? So, I'm sorry if you're a big Yusuke fan, but I think he stays in B tier, but all of his card abilities are definitely very strong. So that is not to be understated. That's why I think he's actually better than Morgana. So yeah. Now, with Makoto, I am extremely, extremely biased towards Makoto. In my opinion, she's best girl. I'm a big fan. But if we're being 100% honest, she doesn't bring a whole lot to the table. I genuinely cannot remember her ability that was added to Royale. I believe it has something to do with targeting enemies' weaknesses, or it's like, you know, you learn more of their moves or something like that. From what I remember, it's kind of a worse version of Akechi's ability, so you kind of have to knock her for that. But I do think her story is really interesting. Again, I keep saying interesting, but I do. I think her story is really cool. You basically helping her out with that younger student, I'm blanking on the younger student's name, following her around, being her boyfriend for a little bit on the fake date, and helping her, helping that student out and trying to get them to realize that they're kind of throwing their life away with the path they're going down, and then that giving Makoto the confidence to be her own person and go out and become a, I think she wanted to be a police chief or something like that. I know it's something in the police because of her dad. And yeah, like finding more about her dad, her and Sai's dad is really interesting, because that's always something I was confused about in my first playthrough, is that, you know, her and Sai are together, you see them a lot in the main story, but you're like, where are the parents? Like, what's going on here? So, you know, it's really cool to see that, but she doesn't have the best abilities in the world, and I think that really, really, really drags her down, because a lot of the character's abilities higher up in the tier list are very strong, and hers just is there, you know. But I do think she's a very likable character. I think her storyline is very fun to play through. If you haven't done her Confidant, definitely check it out. But it's also kind of tough because you have to have, I think it's level 4 intelligence. So on your first play, now Royale makes it very easy to level up your player stats. Like, it's so much easier to level up your player stats in Royale than it was in vanilla. But level 4 intelligence is a little tough to get. I mean, some of these characters, I'm pretty sure you have to have level 3 charm or something like that to start it, and then it goes up throughout. So again, I'm not really considering that, but you know, just something to keep in mind with Makoto, because you have a little bit of investment and you're not really getting a ton back. So I think she's in C tier because of that. Even though I love her, I don't think she is, I don't think you can justify putting her higher than that. But man, Akechi is really interesting. Again, I'm sorry I keep saying everything's interesting, but Akechi is just a wild character. On my first playthrough, I despised Akechi. On my second playthrough, I despised Akechi, and oh my goodness, I just really did not like him, and I still don't. But in Royale, I think getting to see him in the new storyline at the end of the game is really cool. I think it's really, really, really just tremendous that they put him in the game, and you and him are obviously, you know, you're parallels of each other, and you get to fight alongside him, just going absolutely nuts in Maruki's palace. It's so fun. It's so great. I love that, and that makes me like Akechi a lot more. I'm gonna be honest. I hated him in all of my playthroughs before this, but getting to fight alongside just absolutely insane Akechi is great. But his ability is definitely it's definitely can be strong. Again, just with a lot of these abilities, it's random chance, so the ones that are guaranteed are definitely going to be better. But I do think you know, his is very good. Being able to just randomly at the start of a battle, when you're first fighting someone, know their weakness is very strong. It's very strong. Obviously, very experienced players are going to know certain personas' weaknesses just off the top of your head. You're just going to know, oh, Jack Frost, use fire on it, you know, stuff like that. But it's definitely very convenient to have. And I do think his story is really, really interesting. I mean, as much as, again, I hated him in my first few playthroughs, his whole storyline with Shido is very surprising. Maybe I'm just not the most observant story consumer, but I did not see his whole storyline with Shido coming. I just assumed, you know, he was evil. Because, you know, he's obviously very shady. Like, as soon as he shows up, you're like, something's off with this guy. I don't know what it is, but something is up with Akechi. Sketchy Akechi. But I thought his storyline was really cool. The fact that he's just trying to get approval. And in the vanilla game and in Royale, you know, obviously he ends up getting killed by himself, the shadow version of himself, which is strangely poetic. And, you know, you try to turn him at the end, and it looks like you're turning him, and then all that happens, which is tragic. But again, in Royale, you get to fight alongside him in a different timeline, which is really cool. And yeah, he's got a lot going on. He's better than I thought he would be. And especially doing his confidants in Royale and, you know, playing pool with him and stuff like that. And him just straight up admitting to you that he just hates you, I thought was really awesome. Like, I was like, yes, we're under his skin. We got him to admit it. Before, you know, all of the story stuff happens. I thought that was a really cool thing they put in the game, and a really awesome change and a great one. So I think Akechi's a pretty solid character, honestly. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I think Royale helps him out a lot. So Akechi, there he goes. Futaba is also A tier, I believe. I don't think she's best girl by any means. I'm not on that train, but she is a very strong character. Her abilities that she has are just kind of wild. The fact that you can just randomly get all these stat boosts are amazing. And the recovery stuff she provides with SP and HP is great as well. And you know, her actual Confidant abilities, you know, being able to check mementos is so nice, especially when you're looking for those star things. I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head, but you know what I mean. It's so helpful. And you know, what's our other ability? It's the instant hack. You know, when as soon as you get in a battle, you have a hold up. That's pretty strong as well. Like, she just has a lot of very strong abilities. I think she's actually better than Akechi, sorry. And they're going to be more useful than On's, like, especially because On's is just a random chance almost all the time. And so is Futaba's, don't get me wrong, but the things you're using Futaba's for are going to have way more of an impact than Akechi's and On's are. And then you factor in her story, which I'm not the biggest fan of, because to me it's a bit odd that, you know, it seems like she's very much a little sister figure to you. Like, she seems like obviously she's younger than the group, but she very much acts like a little kid. So it's weird that you can romance her after that. To me, if you want to romance her, go for it. You live your life. But to me, it always felt odd that that's an option, because she seems like such a child that would be odd. And obviously you're all in high school, so, you know, it is what it is. But her storyline is really compelling. It's really cute. You know, you're training her, or like helping her to be more social and be more comfortable out in the world. And it's really nice to see you, her, and Sojiro get to spend time together and, you know, help her grow as a person. So it's really cool. She has some really strong abilities and just a great overall character, to be honest. Now, Haru is interesting. I'm sorry, I keep saying interesting. But Haru is certainly something, alright. I think she kind of has the same thing as Makoto, which is her ability is good, but it's not that good. And her story is solid, but it's not, like, overly compelling by any means. So, you know, Haru's story, she's got the Kumara Foods legend looming over her. Her father's death, which is just incredibly tough to deal with. That's got to be pretty rough. And, you know, the company is pressuring her to continue the company forward and do what her dad was doing. And obviously she's just not ready for that. You can't have that forced on you. So that is very compelling to see in her Confidant and see her grapple with that and figure out what she wants to do. And then obviously, you know, it turns into her coffee shop dream. And, you know, going to Sojiro for advice and all that stuff. It's again, a lot of these character arcs are just about character growth, and that's great to see. And it's great to see her coming into her own and doing what she wants to do and pursuing her dreams, which is great. But her abilities being the vegetable abilities, they're certainly really, really nice. Don't get me wrong. They're very, very nice, especially when you compare it to Sojiro's ability, because you don't have to take up your time to do it or hire Kawakami to do it. You can just, you know, hey, plant them, come back a few days later, boom, you have these very strong SP items. It's nice, but it's not like amazing. It's once you get SP adhesive 3, which you probably can get pretty early on, depending on how much you prioritize Takemi, you don't really need the SP recovery items. It's more for just like boss battles. And I haven't played the game on Merciless mode, so maybe she's more helpful in Merciless mode, but her Confidant abilities never really helped me out that much in my personal playthroughs. Maybe they were great for you, but for me, her abilities just didn't seem super necessary. But she is a pretty cool character. You know, her whole thing with Morgana is pretty fun, with them being like the Black Hat Bandits or whatever their name was. But you know, at the end of the day, she's very middle of the road. You know, her story's solid, her abilities are okay. It's just, you know, nothing over the top great. So Haru, C tier. The twins, though, I had pictures for like the separated versions of the twins, and I just picked this one. I just picked it. The twins are really interesting. Their storyline isn't very good, just because it's a lot of like, you know, it reminds me of just anime in the sense of like, it's something starts to happen and then they just drop off, and then something starts to happen and then nothing happens, and it's very like you're always wanting more every Confidant level that you get with them. But it is interesting to see like their mentality. The twins are a very mysterious character, to say the least, throughout the playthroughs. Like, you don't really know too much about them until the very end of the game, and then even when you get more character development with them, you still don't really know what's going on there. Obviously, you know, they fuse into Lazaretta, or whatever her name is. I totally couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but and in Royale they have more of an impact, because of the timeline shifting and all that stuff, which is nice. But the story itself is just they're definitely held back. Whoopsie, they're definitely held back by not being able to spoil their storyline until the end of the game. And then their abilities are pretty strong, though. Their abilities are pretty strong, especially when you get to the last few abilities, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it is this, but I could be wrong. It is the ability to create personas that are higher level than you. That is legitimately game-breaking. That is so strong, it's ridiculous. And if you're doing a new Game Plus playthrough, you can literally get this ability like as soon as you unlock them, because you could just use personas that you got in the compendium. But oh my god, that's so busted. Like, what? You could just start getting ridiculously over-leveled personas so early on into the game, as long as you have the money for it. And obviously there's so many different ways to money grind, that shouldn't be a problem. So, oh my god, this character is strong. I think solely because of that ability, they go in B tier, because that's so strong. But their storyline really, really, really drags them down. So I think B tier is where they go. probably like here. But yeah, it's crazy how strong that ability is. But Chihaya, I believe is her name. Her storyline is pretty cool. I didn't do it my first playthrough because I was like, I'm not paying 100,000 yen. What is this? Not knowing how strong of a confidant she is. And man, oh man, is she a strong confidant. So, those of you that don't know, her ability, or one of her abilities, I think it's the third or fourth one that you unlock. It gives you confidant points, like little blue music notes, towards any confidant of your choice for just 5,000 yen, which is nothing. So being able to do that every single day saves you so much time. It is incredible. Like, it is just so game changing how much that affects your playthrough, because you no longer have to spend these days hanging out with confidants where you don't level them up at all. You're just getting the blue music notes or whatever that is, until they're ready to rank up. You don't have to do that anymore. I mean, you can if you want to, if you want to waste your day, but you can just spend the 5,000, level it up a little bit, and if it doesn't immediately rank them up, you might have to do it a few times. But you can just do that while you're making progress with other confidants, or while you're leveling up your character, or while you go to mementos, or whatever you want to do, and you just get the free confidant points. That is so incredibly strong. I cannot put it into words how much that changes your playthrough. It's crazy how good that is. And you don't get her that late on into the game. She's, from what I remember, she's very early to mid game of where you get her. So that's just so good. That is such a good ability. You don't even need her other abilities. It's just so strong. And then you factor in the money one that you can use with Ryuji's insta-kill, that gives you just insane amounts of money in mementos, and it's just wow. Chihaya is a strong confidant. And her story is pretty good too, which is why she's an S tier. Sorry, I probably should have put her in there before. But her story is really compelling too. You know, her whole background of, you know, being in this like village where people worshipped her for being like a god, and then she's out here selling these fake rocks to people, and she has to figure that out of who she really is, and come to terms with that, and come to terms with fate, and how it's not absolute, and all of that stuff. It's really, really, really interesting. Like, I did not think that's where we were going with the storyline, but it's a really cool one to follow through. And then she secretly has this like cute accent, and it's really nice. It's really adorable. It's really fun to play through. And Chihaya is just great. She's a very great confidant. You should prioritize her immediately. Even if you don't like her as a character, like, her abilities are just so strong. You just can't ignore her. Like, it's that good. Hifumi is also very, very strong. Wow. She is incredibly strong. You can make the argument that her ability, or her main ability that you get at the end, which is being able to switch out party members, isn't that important on the earlier or on the lower difficulties. But once you get to normal, even just normal, not hard or merciless, being able to switch out your party members on anybody's turn is so good. Like, oh my gosh, does that help you with so many different fights in the game? It's crazy. Locking yourself in, not having her ability, so locking yourself into your 4 characters, if you're not looking up the bosses and what they do, or if you're just, you know, playing the game blind or whatever it is, that can really, really cause you to struggle a lot with some of these boss fights. Like, let's take the Kumura boss fight, for example. If you're locked into those 4 characters and you don't have a certain, like, all-hitting move weakness for one of those bots, that battle is so extremely frustrating because you just can't kill them. They never die. It's crazy. So being able to switch everything out just helps you so much. It can't be understated how strong that is. And then also her other abilities, being able to flee whenever you want to, is super, super convenient. Especially, you know, if you somehow accidentally run into the Reaper or something like that. It's really, really strong. She has very, very strong abilities. And then you factor in her story. Her story is really fun too. being this like prodigy shogi player, trying to figure out, oh, do I actually like this, or do I want to do it just to make my family proud? And then it turns out her mom is just rigging all of her games and she's not as good as she thinks she is. That would be pretty devastating if your whole life you're being told that you're this prodigy, that you're so amazing, and then it turns out obviously, she has skills, but she is not nearly as good as she had thought she was. That would be pretty heartbreaking, especially for how passionate she is about shogi. So it's really cool to go through her story and to find all that out and try and help her out along the way. So Hifumi, very, very strong as well. Definitely don't neglect Hifumi. Sometimes she can be kind of annoying because she's only available on certain days, and you get her, I think, mid to late game. But once she's available, definitely prioritize Hifumi. Very strong character, very good storyline. Oh yeah, though. Oh yeah. Jason has a joke that he always calls her "Oh yeah," which take that with what you will. But I think Oh yeah is F tier. Okay, because her abilities are basically useless. Like if you're constantly getting your security level to go up, you're just doing something wrong. Like I don't know how that happens. And then if you are having that to happen, you're probably relatively new to the Persona series, and in which case you're probably playing on the lower difficulties, in which your security level gets lowered way faster and it gets increased way slower. So it really doesn't matter. Like almost like all of her abilities are pointless in my opinion, and her story is just okay. To me, it always felt a bit odd that this journalist, this alcoholic journalist, is like heavily flirting on a high schooler. That never really sat well with me. But her story is okay. She's got her whole thing going on with that person she's trying to help, and you end up doing that for her, which is really great. But I don't think it's enough to bring her up a tier. Like she's just, maybe you could put her in D tier because of her story, but her abilities are just so useless. I feel rude saying that, but it's just, they're just not good. That I think she has to be an F tier because of that. I'm sorry, oh yeah. But Iwai or Iwai, I'm not sure which one is how you pronounce that. But he's like, I want to put him higher than D tier, okay? But I think he has to be in D tier because gun customization is really nice. It's definitely super nice being able to add elemental effects to your guns and more damage at the cost of accuracy, or more accuracy at the cost of damage. It's really, really, really cool, especially with the whole gun rework in Royale. Not having to worry about ammo wasting is so nice. But you don't really need it. It's not game changing. It's just like, oh, this is nice, a little extra damage here and there, or an extra burn chance or whatever it is. But it's just, you can go through the whole game multiple times without doing this man's Confidant, and you won't be missing out on anything. Like it's not that great, but it's definitely nice. But his story is very good though. Getting to, go on his little missions with him in the restaurants and get intel on people, and then you get held at gunpoint at one point. He's got his whole storyline with his son, and you learn about their tattoos together, and it's really heartwarming, surprisingly heartwarming. It's really interesting. Obviously, the story has a lot of adult themes, and this one is no exception. But I think his abilities really, really hold him back. If it was just based on his story, I think he'd be in B tier. But yeah, there's not a lot of reason. With all of these confidants, with all of these confidants, you can make the case that you should prioritize these 100%. With C tier and below, it's hard to make that argument, and I think he is no exception to that. So unfortunately, Iwai got me in D tier. Kawakami though, Kawakami is is a character, that's for sure. Her introduction in the story, she's just so annoyingly reluctant to teach you. Like it's so odd to go back to the story. at the beginning of the story when she's just like, oh, why me? Why do I have to be the one with the transfer student? Like, it's a bit much. And then, you know, the whole thing with the maid service is a hilarious scene. But doing her confidant is like really, I was not prepared for her confidant story. You know, her whole thing with the student that she was tutoring, and he ended up dying in the car accident, and then her parents, or the kid's parents are blaming her for it, and she feels the need to overcompensate and pay them all this money. And it's wild. And, you know, the fact that she's trying so hard to cover it up at the beginning is definitely something that gets you hooked on this story. And it's really shocking. It's wild. And then her abilities are very, 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 very nice as well. Being able to have her do your laundry, or make the coffee for you, or whatever, being able to slack off in class, it's all things that just save you, like, not a ton of time, but just save you so much time added up that it ends up being a lot of time. Like, in the moment, it doesn't seem like just being able to slack off once and read a book in class, like once every few weeks, is that great, but you add that up over your playthrough, and it's really, really, really good. Like, all of her abilities help you out a ton. And then you get to her final ability, which was better in vanilla, but is still very good in this game, which is being able to go out at night after mementos or after a palace run. Wow, that is so nice, especially because with a lot of these nighttime confidants, they're only available on certain days, so it can be very hard to rank them up sometimes, because the nights where you want to go out and hang out with confidants, they're just not there. So being able to do it whenever you want to is super strong. It is super, super, super strong. And you add in all the time that is saved up throughout the playthrough that she saves you with, and I think she goes in S tier. I think because of those and the fact that her story is so compelling, in my opinion, I think she's definitely S tier. And I would put her above Chihaya. It's just, it is a bit trickier to get Kawakami. Obviously you don't have to pay 100,000, but you have to pay a lot of money over her confidant. And I think you need like level 3 guts or something like that to start her confidant. So yes, but Kawakami, very, very strong, very good story, all that. The king, I forget his name, I forget the kid's name, I'm sorry. I think it's like Shinya or something like that. But he's a tricky one, you know. On my first few playthroughs, I had no idea he even existed until I googled Confidant and I saw him and I was like, who is this? And then I looked up how to get him and I was like, oh, okay. And that's what Joker's his B attack in the air is. Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe that's just me. But I think it's a very real critique, that you won't be able, a lot of players won't know he's even in the game if you don't talk to people in the arcade or whatever you have to talk to, and then start his confidant. It's definitely a tricky one, and it's very easy to miss, but his abilities that he gives you are very good, and his story is really good. The fact that, you know, he's so good at these games, that he's trying so hard to be good at them, that, you know, he's driving people away, he doesn't have many friends, and, you know, his mom is a huge influence on his life negatively, is really heartbreaking to see. You know, you want to root for this kid, and then this pro player comes in and just demolishes him, which is so just, why? I mean, come on, why you gotta do that to the kid? But, you know, getting to see his fire and train him and get his revenge is really, really cool. And you know, his story is pretty great, and his abilities that you give you are really good. You know, being able to start the battle with just gunfire, just gunslinging. All his abilities that he gives you are very strong as well. And I think both those things considered, I didn't think about this coming in, but I think he's got to be A tier. With everything we just said, I think he's a very strong confidant, honestly. And if you haven't done his, definitely Google it on how to start it if you need to, and do his confidant. You definitely won't regret it. It's just the only problem is he is a bit tricky to start, and you get him pretty late into the game, I think. I could be wrong, it might be mid-game, but I think it's decently late game. And then he's not available a lot of the days, which is kind of rough about, you know, everything he gives you. I think he's A tier. Takemi, though, Takemi's kind of tricky. she's one of the earliest confidants you get, which is really nice, and the things she gives you are very convenient, but they're not like crazy good. But her story is really cool, though. I think her story of, you know, not wanting to be a crazy successful doctor, just wanting to do her part, and then, you know, she helps out this little kid and she almost gets shut down and she goes into a depression. It's definitely really intense. Like, I was not prepared for this with her storyline, but it's really intense. It's really rewarding doing it. It's really heartwarming seeing how it ends. And her abilities are really strong too. I mean, they're not like game breaking, but having a bunch of healing items is nice, albeit very expensive until you get the discount. But once you get the discount, it's really, really good. Having these abilities or these items for not that expensive, and then you factor in getting you get SP Adhesive 3 from her, which is arguably the best item in the game. Saves you so much SP, it's crazy. It can, just having SP Adhesive 3 can allow you to do single day palace runs. It's wild. So I think with all that factored in, she's definitely a very good confidant. She's just not like amazing. So I think she's like very solidly in B tier because of that. She's very strong, but I couldn't really argue prioritizing her over any of these characters. Maybe On, again, I'm very biased towards On, but you know, it's fine. It's fine. The Speech Man. I'm totally blanking on what his name is. I'm sorry. No Good Tora, as the kids call him. He's really, really interesting. He's really, really interesting character. I genuinely had no idea he was a confidant on my first few playthroughs of vanilla Persona 5, that is. But his story is really cool to see, you know, him grappling with his past and trying to decide, okay, do I want to stick to my morals, or do I want to be a more successful politician? Him getting offered the deal in that restaurant that you go to with him, and being able to be there for him and learn his speech techniques and just back him up, and to stick to his morals is a pretty good one. It's not like crazy compelling, but it is a very solid story. And most of his abilities aren't that great. It's just like hey, you know, ask for a little bit more money in negotiations and things like that. But his last ability is pretty strong if you can get it, and that's being able to get personas, or like negotiate personas that are higher level than you. That is really strong. I don't think it's as strong as the twins, because you can make a bajillion personas at once if you want to, whereas, you know, you can only negotiate with so many. And if you're grinding, there's only going to be a couple personas that are higher level than you when you go to palaces in Mementos. But it is very strong if that's the route you want to go to, if you don't want to do the twins. It can help you quite a bit. So I think, I'm totally blanking on his name. I'm just going to keep calling him No Good Tora. Is a pretty solid character. But he's just not like game-breakingly good, I don't think. Again, that's just my opinion. I don't think his story is that great, but it is cool. He's definitely a cool character for sure. You know, I just wish his earlier abilities would be a bit better, and then he'd be higher. But Mishima, his abilities are so convenient. Oh my god, just having more experience and having your backup members get more experience. It's not super exciting. It's not super great on paper, but it helps out your playthrough so much. You have to do so much less grinding, all of that stuff. It's very convenient. It's very, very, very convenient. It's very nice. And his storyline isn't that great. It's just kind of, you know, he's getting bullied a lot, and he's trying to figure, he so desperately wants to be useful and wants to be recognized, and that's, you know, ultimately his downfall. He wants the Fan of Thieves to change his heart, but you don't change his heart, you let him do it himself, which is nice, kind of poetic, but it's just like not super great. I definitely think they could have done more with his storyline, but for what we got, it's solid. But I think because his storyline is so kind of mundane, in my opinion, I think he's C tier, but his abilities are super nice. Again, cannot be understated how good it is to have extra experience. But, you know, I think his storyline has a lot of room to improve. I thought they could have done more with it, but it is what it is. It is what it is, you know? And speaking of that, here comes Sojiro. Daddy Sojiro himself, the pimp, the legend, the man, the myth. Love Sojiro. What a guy. Just his abilities aren't very good. Like, getting the coffee is nice. It's definitely nice. Getting the curry is nice. But they're just not that great. Again, if you want SP items, Haru just has better ones, but you do get Sojiro's way earlier into the game, which is nice. However, it's not, you can't, in my opinion, you can't really justify really grinding out Sojiro's Confidant, because there's just so many more rewarding ones than his that his abilities really drag you down. However, his story is great though. It's really cool to flesh out the world building of this story, to see him and Futaba and all of Sojiro's stuff he's got going on with, you know, wanting to, whether or not he wants to be a father or not, and growing into this role that he has with you and Futaba is very heartwarming. And you go to, I believe you go to Futaba's mom's funeral at the end of it, and you know, it's very heartwarming. We love Sojiro around here, but again, his abilities just really hold him back, you know. So Sojiro's in D tier. Mommy Sai technically is a confidant, not really, just a story one. You don't really get any abilities for her, but her story is pretty cool though. I think she's bottom of D tier. I mean, she literally doesn't have any abilities, so obviously that's rough, but you know, since she doesn't have any abilities, I think you have to consider her differently. At least, you know, with how I'm doing this, I'm judging her just based off her story alone, so she doesn't really get any abilities. But with that, her story is pretty cool though. Again, getting to see her and Makoto is pretty cool. And her grappling with, you know, do I want to be successful or do I want to be just, is pretty cool. And her palace is just so awesome. Like, her palace theme is great. Her palace music is amazing. All the puzzles are cool. Her boss fight is, like, in Royale, it's not as good as I was kind of hoping for more from her Royale boss fight. But still, she's just a really cool character. I'm a big fan. Again, I love the Nijima sisters. I really want to get her SS necklace that she wears. That's just a personal thing of mine. But yeah, Sai, again, so she doesn't have any abilities. It's kind of hard to rank her, but just off her story alone, I think she's in D tier. It's nothing like groundbreaking or anything, but you know, seeing her change is definitely nice to see. It's just she doesn't get nearly as fleshed out as any of these other characters though, which obviously holds her back. But the freshman, everyone's favorite redhead, back at it. Wow. I have been wanting to talk about this for so long. Oh my god, was I shook about her character reveal at the end of the game, that she's not who she's been saying she is, that her sister is literally dead, and she's been in her own head about this and is posing as her sister, is mind-blowing. Maybe I'm just an oblivious consumer and I should have seen something like this coming, but I did not. I was not ready for that at all. I was like, oh my god, that's wild, which makes Maruki's character more interesting, which we'll get to. But she is just really different from all of these characters. Like, obviously, you know, every character here has some sort of baggage, has some sort of drama that they're going through, but hers is on a whole nother level of psychological trauma. It's crazy. But her abilities, you know, she gets the basic party abilities, but she does give you some pretty cool stuff as well, with, you know, your acrobat training and being able to dodge personas and mementos and things if they get the jump on you is really cool, and being able to ambush them from farther is nice. It's like very cool game mechanics, but it doesn't help you out that much. Like, again, if you're getting caught by personas, you're probably doing something wrong, and you don't really need to, you never really need her ability of ambushing them farther away. You just kind of, if you want to use it, you can. But for the most part, you could just, with the new sneak mechanics in Royale, it's very easy to sneak up on any shadow you want to, for the most part. So her abilities aren't that great, but her story is just, insane. Like, I'm still so shook about that. Like, what? But doing her confidant, being able to help her out with her dances and be there for her and help her be more confident in herself, obviously not being her sister, is just, it's really heartwarming. Again, I'm saying heartwarming all the time, but this is one of the most heartwarming stories. I think you can make the case she has the best story in all of them, which is why she's so, I think you gotta put her here. But her abilities just aren't very good. Like, if she had good abilities or even mediocre abilities, I think she'd be A tier or even S tier, because her story is that good. But just, you know, her abilities are just okay. You know, there's not a lot of use for them, but if you want to take advantage of them, you can. If you want to do palace runs where you just like run through all of the shadows without fighting them, her abilities can come in clutch. But it's just, you know, they could be better. But Maruki, though, this is a really interesting character. Again, I'm sorry, I've been saying that for every character, but Maruki is wild. Again, I did not see the twist coming. Obviously, when he said he was interested in cognitive science, that should have been the tell that something's going on with him. I know he's going to be important. He's going to be an important character. I on my first playthrough, I had to look up how to unlock the second playthrough, or the second story, because I didn't want to miss it, obviously. And the fact that it's like, oh, make sure you have Maruki at level 7, it's like, obviously he's gonna be an important character. And then when I saw when you first go into his palace, it's like, oh yeah, this is definitely Maruki, it's not gonna be anyone else. But still, his character is very complex. I like it a lot. The fact, I think some of the best villains in any storytelling, really, are the villains that genuinely think that they're the hero, and I think Maruki embodies that completely. I think you can play through Resident Evil Royale and think, hey, Maruki's ending is not a bad ending at all. If you do it, all of your characters are super happy, super content, you all have a fun time together. So it's like, is this really a bad ending? Like, obviously it is, because, you know, you're living in a fake world. But still, he's a very compelling character in that way. And I'm not even factoring his backstory with his girlfriend, you know, going through the trauma and then losing her memory of him. That's devastating. That's absolutely devastating. You gotta feel for Maruki there. And, you know, I'm a little biased towards him because he's the same voice actor for Ferdinand von Aegir from Fire Emblem Three Houses, if you didn't know. But yeah, Maruki's just a really compelling character. The way it ends is you and Maruki just punching each other. It's pretty funny, but, you know, necessary nonetheless. And I think his character is just really well rounded and really well integrated into the story. That he's a very strong character. And that's not even considering his abilities that he gives you. Like, just hanging out with him gives you more SP threshold, which is incredibly strong. But his other abilities, oh my goodness, I'm totally blanking on it. I know it's SP related. He gives you other abilities that are very strong too. I'm so sorry that I can't think of it off the top of my head. But he does give you really convenient abilities. It's nothing like game-breakingly good from what I remember. But I know, I remember getting his abilities and thinking, oh wow, this is nice. Which is kind of Royale in a nutshell. They just added so many quality of life changes that it's incredible. But Maruki is really good. Not just in story, but in his abilities. And I think he goes in S tier because of that. I think his story is one of the best in the game. Like arguably the best in the game. Him and I'm totally blanking on her name. I'm so sorry. I probably should have done more research or refresh my memory before I did this. But they both have really good stories. You know, obviously they go hand in hand, so it makes sense. They're both high ranking in story. Maruki is very strong as well. But that concludes the Persona 5 Royale Confidant tier list. This is what we got. Again, if you disagree with me, let me know. If you agree with me, let me know. I would love to hear from you guys. Love to hear the feedback. And yeah, that's gonna be it from me. I've been Storm Targaryen. If you want to see more from me, I'm on Twitch a lot, at least 3 to 4 times a week. Streaming Pokemon over there if you're interested. And Jason and I will be back for another video soon. You know, just scheduling things can be tough sometimes, so we'll be back as soon as we can. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.